German history, 1885 to 1990. Europe had just emerged from the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars, of which France stomped all over the German territories east of the Rhineland and conquered many of the Germanic states. Due to the fact that the liberal revolutions of the French only brought tyranny and bloodshed, the people of Europe tended to turn towards conservatism, seeing it as a safe haven from the bloody and tyrannous ideologies of liberalism. After the events of the Napoleonic Wars, an era known as the Restoration hit Europe. Britain, Austria, Russia and Prussia would lead Europe into this new era. During Napoleon's conquest, the German principalities just east of the Rhine River had been reorganised. This, however, to the detest of many German princes, was not restored. However, the princes in these reorganised states were still loyal to the French, and to pry them from their French overlords, they received guarantees of independence from Austria and Prussia. Austria and Prussia were now left with the responsibility of protecting these states. Enter Metternich, a figurehead of Restoration Europe and a bastion of conservatism. He was persuaded of the idea that to maintain a balance of power in Europe, the German states had to maintain an interventionist policy, squashing possible revolutions in neighbour states. To maintain the peace this system brought, it required the Germanic states to relinquish the right to declare war on one another, but would still retain their sovereignty. This system would expand into the German Confederation. A committee composed of the largest influential German states would set up a draft for the constitution for this new confederacy. It was made up of Austria, Prussia, Württemberg, Bavaria and Hanover. It however would end in deadlock, with Württemberg and Bavaria refusing proposals by Prussia and Austria. The committee would be held off during a crisis where Prussia was threatening to annex all of Saxony to cover for recent losses in Poland. Prussia settled part of Saxony and the committee was back underway. After ages of constant requests, the 29 other German states were admitted into the discussion, and by 1815 they had finished a draft based on the Austrian proposals, and the German Constitution, or Federal Act as it was called, was part of the final Act of Congress signed in June 1815. The resulting confederation was in practice a more rational version of the Holy Roman Empire, containing all of its once held territory with the exceptions of Austrian Netherlands, which was now a part of the Kingdom of the United Netherlands. The Federal Act's main purpose was defence, and thusly very little restrictions were placed on the sovereignty of the member states. The Federal Diet, or the Bundestag at Frankfurt, was merely a congress of ambassadors whose main goal was to protect their leaders' interests. Amendments to the constitution were virtually impossible. This was due to the fact they required all member states to agree. In more urgent matters like declarations of war, they required a two-thirds majority. In fact, there were only 16 sessions of this type in the Federal Diet. Most decisions were made by an inner circle of the Diet, where 11 states had one vote each and the other smaller states held 6 between them. This inner circle works on a majority basis, and Austria and Prussia only held one vote each in an attempt to limit their power. In practice, however, it just led to these two coercing the smaller states to vote on their behalf. To many progressives, there was a glimmer of hope that this Diet would eventually evolve into a more centralised and unified Germany. These hopes, however, were dashed at the first meeting of 1816, where the Diet steered away from national policies and trade, and a federal court was halted by the opposition of Württemberg and Bavaria. The most important matters to liberals, defining the liberties of the German people, was left to the individual states. Only really in defence did the Diet achieve something, setting up a federal army comprised of 10 corps, 3 from Austria, 3 from Prussia, 1 from Bavaria, and 3 from a combination of the other smaller states. However, the army was considerably weakened from the start, as smaller rulers demanded direct control over their soldiers. Neither was the means of selecting a supreme commander ever resolved, and the Diet just said that it would choose one when the call for war came. As a result of the changes, the people began to hold enormous nationalistic pride of their rulers. This was not an abnormal act when you have a population that is made up of mostly farmers. Restoration Europe seemed calm, but it was an illusion. Behind the facade of peace and stability, nationalism and liberalism were boiling. The solvent Metternich Europe were beginning to develop. German nationalism was a hard concept to pin down. Unlike Britain and France, Germany had no actual borders. It could be argued that as far east as Poland down to as west as the Benelux and Switzerland were all part of one united German Reich. People began to romanticize of medieval Germany, with its knights and imperial pride. However, most Germans were content with the borders drawn by the Confederation. Liberals in Germany fought a strong fight. In some states they even achieved some sort of constitution. But the problems Liberals in Germany had was that they had not united. It was a regional struggle rather than a national one. In northern Germany, liberalism was rather weak. It tried to paint itself as laudably German, but due to the local aristocracy not really wanting liberalism and the apathy of the lower class, it ended in failure after failure. Meanwhile, in the south, liberalism was a lot more potent because it enjoyed the aid from the handworker, who were skilled artisans and craftsmen that were being forced out of work by industrialization. With the amount of power the South liberals had, they were able to pass the constitutions out of their rulers. These weren't as extreme as the French, but they weren't as conservative as the Germans. These constitutions were only accepted as they aided the consolidation of the new territory they had been granted. Württemberg, Bavaria, Baden, and Hessen-Darmstadt's constitutions were, however, much more advanced, and were modelled after the French Charter. They enjoyed liberal rights such as free press, freedom of association, religious tolerance, and equality before the law. Despite all this, the crown's power was unbroken. The kings and princes were still above the law. Elected officials really only held advisory positions, though the common German did not care. It was only a loud minority who called for these constitutions, and they were mainly the intelligentsia from universities. Professors like Dahlmann, Rottig, Grimm, Moll, and Gervinus are names that should be remembered, as they will come up later. That was my first history video. This is a transcribe of a book called The History of Germany, 1815 to 1990, written by William Carr. I think that's who it's written by. It says it on the book anyway. So, chapter 1 had been split into 2 parts because I couldn't get it all done fast enough. I wanted it to be out today, or by today anyway. And chapter 2 should not be split in 2 parts, but my time was restricted due to college and slow reading, and I'd already read chapter 1, so I had to go back through it. Chapter 2 I'll be taking notes down whilst I read, so it will be done easier. Personal improvements I see that need to be done in the video are, because I recorded it over a series of a week, that I just seem to be excited and really hyperactive and speaking really loud in some, and kind of mellow and informative in others. So that could be something I'll improve on, but thank you for watching, goodbye.